Hello everyone, my name is Michael Azerbad and I'm going to be doing a three-part tutorial. They're going to be dealing with cinematics in UDK. The first tutorial, which will be this one, will be dealing with starting with a blank map and placing a camera while creating a matinee sequence with a director group. So basically some pretty easy filming stuff that you'll need to make good cinematics in UDK. So to start out, we're going to open up a new map right here in this editor. We'll just go to a UDK blank map, and this is our blank map in UDK. So once we're here, we're going to create a basic terrain. This is just something that we're going to use so we can film on a flat, even surface. Stick with the 16:16 defaults, and looks good for what we need. Next, we will come into our content browser and we will add a material to that terrain. Only materials can be added to terrain. So by checkboxing this material, we'll just ensure that we're only grabbing them. And we can go ahead and type in grass and have a basic grass material here that will be fine. And then we want to fully load right down here. And this just allows us now to actually use it in our level. So up here in the top left is our terrain editing mode, which we can click and it'll open up. So with this material selected in the background, we can right click in here and auto create the material, which then applies it for what we need. So that's good. Now let's have something else to film. So let's just type in Liam up here. Make sure all assets are selected and we get one static mesh built in UDK as well. We can throw him onto the map and just make sure he's standing up here relatively close to the ground, doesn't have to be perfect. And then just throw one more in on the other side. Just like this. And push spacebar and we can rotate him. And just kind of make them face each other a little bit. And they seem like they're pretty good. And I'm just going to move them a little closer. All right there. So we have two bots that we have facing each other, and this will be our basic film point that we'll start with. So next what we need is our cameras for our cinematics. So excuse me. Come up to our actor classes and grab a camera actor under common here and throw him on there. And if your camera doesn't show up, just go ahead and you can do it in either view here, but I typically do show category, so there it is right there. Now it's selected, we can close out of this group here. I'm going to maximize the window and open up our Kismet. Kismet's right here. This is where all our UDK functionality we can do for us directors or moving in triggers and whatnot. But with the camera selected, we can go ahead and right click in here and do a new matinee. This is what we're going to use to film now. So we double click, we go inside, and with the camera still selected, we right click again and do a new empty group. There is a camera group that we can use, which just adds a zoom function, and for this right now we won't need it, so I'm going to stick with an empty group as they're a little bit easier to move around and a little less buggy for what I've found to use. So with new empty group, we'll start with starting camera. Spell it right, there we go. And now with this camera, it's locked on to our view. This is where it is, right? So what we'll do right now is I'll select it again and I'm going to move him so he's looking at both of our guys here. Now he's kind of a little more, two guys are in the center, looks good. So when we click now here, we'll right click on starting camera, and this will allow us to add a whole bunch of different things, but for these tutorials we'll only use an event track, animation control track, and most importantly our movement track for our camera movement, which is what we'll select. So the first keyed movement is where the camera currently is located on our map right now. So we moved it originally with this. Now if we want to move it, we'd have to click this key and key the movement here. So for the first second of our cinematic, I'm going to have the movement simply stay here. So the camera won't move for the first second. Just to make sure it stays there, I'll click the movement and set the time to 1 second. So it's right on 1 second. Let's say from 1 second to 2 seconds now, we want the camera to rotate around. So with that, now the camera's now moved around. So here we have the first second it doesn't move. We can play right up here. First second it won't move, and the second it'll move to where I put it. If we want to change that for any reason, by clicking these key movements, we can now readjust our camera to wherever we want it to. So now instead of moving straight, it moves up a little bit. So some pretty basic camera movements. If we wanted to view it outside, we can deselect this camera view and just step back a little bit, and we can play the movie again up here, and we can watch the camera move as well. So it gives you kind of more of a global perspective of what we're dealing with. But for now, we'll just have this basic camera movement, and I'll watch it one more time. We'll just kind of move up like this, and that's pretty basic for what we need right now. Next, what we'll do is we will add another camera, which will give us a little bit more of a director type role in creating cinematics. So if we go back to our content browser up here and grab another camera actor, I'm actually going to throw 2 more camera actors in here. There's one, and I'm going to put the other one over here. So right now we can see these cameras, but when we actually play the level, these cameras will be hidden from the player's view. So with this first camera selected between our 2 guys, we'll click in and we'll add another new empty group here, and let's just say face cam 1. So what I plan to do with these 2 cameras is to actually make them pan across the bot's face. So if we go into the camera, what I want the cinematic to do is kind of just move across Cathod's face, but I want him to move across both of them. So that's why we threw the extra camera in for now. But with this camera selected up here, the first movement track will be, let's say, starting from right here. So by right clicking here again, I can add my new movement track, and that first one now is keyed to where I put the camera. If I go to 2 seconds now and push enter again, set time to 2 just to be sure. For 2 seconds this camera will be still, which is fine because if we look at this camera, this is the one that we want to view through for the first 2 seconds. It's the one that moves, and then we want it to switch now at 2 seconds to this camera. So at 2 seconds we will say we'll pan across Cathode's face in 2 seconds, from 2 seconds to 4 seconds. And selecting this key up here, we can now move the camera across his face. And you can make it as smooth as you want. Mine was a little up and down, but that'll work for what we need. So when I play it, it'll just pan across his face. And so we can select out of that camera, and let's go back to our other camera here. For this one we will do another empty group, and we'll do face cam 2. This one will go across the other Cathode's face. So by selecting it up here now, we can move it and position it relatively close to how we want it to be for the start of our cinematic here. Gotta find him right there. I'll start him on this side so it flows a little bit better. So here is where I want this one to start. I right click on it again here and select a new movement track, so he's going to start there. And if this one's going to end at 4 seconds, I'm going to have this guy now end at, or start at 4 seconds. And we can move this out to a little bit longer. So using the mouse wheel, you can scroll out here. This red triangle is how far your cinematic will play till. So by pushing out the 6 seconds, this entire cinematic now will take 6 seconds, I'm saying. Even if I don't have any keys out here, it'll still play from the original camera spot where I leave it off at. But here I'll push enter again and now fix my movement so he pans across this face as well, like so. So by playing it from that 4-second point, just to make sure it looks okay, pans across his face as well. So now that we have our 3 basic camera sets here, we have to actually tie them together with some sort of group that tells us which time to play which camera. So by right-clicking again, we can do Add New Director Group. And by doing this, we start at 0 seconds, and we can push Enter. And this is going to show us all the camera groups that we can select from. So we have the starting camera, the face cam 1, face cam 2, and director group, which is the director's camera. We'll do the starting camera because that's what we had planned here. From 1 to 2 seconds we wanted to play this. And right at 2 seconds, which is right here, we can come back up to the director group, push enter one more time, and do face cam 1. So if we play it now, from at 2 seconds it switches to the cathode's face, and now we want at 4 seconds to come and switch to this second cathode's face that pans across. So if we do it quick now, we'll play it and they'll pan across the 2 cathodes, and that's basically it. That's how we use the director group into moving our cameras. Some pretty easy stuff, but as you notice, it takes a little time to get used to, and moving the cameras is a definite problem that you'll have to get a nice easy flow. For the next tutorial, I will show you how to add animations to these cathodes to actually get them to move, run around, and then also some camera techniques as well in the third tutorial. So thank you for listening, and bye.